Welcome back. Our Borinquen love affair, part three, three, the German way. Uh, you made it to your third date, getting to know each other well, and all of a sudden learning to let go. A clever little title for us to learn how to release aircraft today off the Aguadilla Airport. We're dealing with departure procedures. Our past two presentations have been sequencing arrivals into the Aguadilla terminal area. Now we're looking at some departures. Real simple, not the longest or most sexiest of our presentations, if you will. A lot of it's non-radar, which is still fun, right? Got to give some love to Chapter 6. So I cannot wait to dive into this. I'm really excited. Departing aircraft is just as fun as arriving if you look at it through the glasses that I am right now. Put on your departure controller hat because we're getting into radar identification and getting aircraft on and off the Aguadilla Airport. I will see you at the next slide. All right, so this presentation is bold to this. I shall be released, like the great song from the band, I shall be released, because that's what we're talking about here. Let's work today on our releases, right? We're going to touch a little bit on some controller applied visual separation. So we're going to touch back on that. As you know, back in part 2, we kind of got into a discussion on how tower controllers are able to help us in the arrival stage. Well, now it kind of helps us to explore how we can help them in the departure stage, right? Giving them a little more responsibility to help facilitate traffic faster. We're going to look at initial headings of departing aircraft, right? We're going to see how we do that, right? We'll seek out the San Juan and Borinquen Tower LOA in the 7110.65 for some tender, loving care and guidance. Thank goodness for guiding documents, right? Facility directives, they help us to complete our job, do it safely, by the book, with a sense of order. Let's jump right into a scenario, right? Nothing holding us back from taking a look at a sector, or in this case, Sector 8 scenario, and seeing how we can apply some of the things right off the bat. Some things might be glaringly obvious to you, right? The nice thing about this presentation is it is aimed at both the D side and the R side, right? Because we know radar associate will get duties assigned by the radar controller. So this can very well happen to you when you're sitting there on D2 and D8, right? Your radar controller delegates some work for you to do, so this is good for you to know. Now, it's not absolutely necessary. It is necessary for if you're a radar trainee, right, sitting down and you're going to be working R8, but that's okay. This is a great opportunity for a presentation to have its target audience be both positions. So ready, set, jets, go. I will see you at the sector, okay? Okay, so we're so idly sitting here, and look at this. One aircraft on the scope here, zoomed in the Aguadilla area, that northwest corner of Sector 8, and we get this. Cargo Lux 54 Lima Heavy, radar service terminated, contact Aguadilla Tower 124.905, right? Give you a little context here, and sure enough, they read back over the tower, Cargo Lux 54 Lima Heavy. Wonderful. And boom, you're hit with this on the shout line, right? Breaking the mundane, routine air traffic control conversation, the dialogue between you and Cargo Lux, and boom, the silence is broken. All right, Aguadilla Tower, request release. All right, request release. Night Cargo A114 off runway 8. And you are met with this trip, right? A flight we know well, right? We've worked it inbound a lot of times over KTOC. Now we are going to work it outbound over KTOC. But before they get to KTOC, they got to get off the ground. And before they get off the ground, we have to let them participate in the air traffic control system, right? Aguadilla is a VFR tower, right? They relay the clearances they get from D8, and sure enough, they relay the releases that R8 gives to them, right? We are permitting Night Cargo 8114 to participate in the air traffic control system in the NAS, and we are relaying that to Aguadilla Tower for them to relay it to the aircraft. So look, you have your strip marked up there, 1875 departure frequency, 10,000 in 10 minutes, in the squawk code, everything applicable. So we'll cover some strip marking too as well. So we're going to take this and run with this. So just tell, hey, Aguadilla, stand by. Let's have a little sidebar conversation before we get back into the dialogue. Okay, see you at the next slide. Okay, so we got this. If you recall from the last presentation, remember we had the AMFlight and the translator. The translator being high, did not see the AMFlight 7120 when we were sequencing into Aguadilla. We referred to this chapter. Let's refresh our memories again. Scroll all the way down the D, and if the non-approach control tower controller states to the radar controller that they will provide visual separation between arrivals, departure arrivals, and or successive departures, and states the call signs of the aircraft involved, the radar controller can approve the application of visual separation as requested. Now, just pause. We did not have the Aguadilla controller state all of that. We can suspend in disbelief that and pretend that they did, right? That they know what they're saying. More often than not, they do actually say both call signs in the case. This time, we can also approve it, right? It's a miniature dialogue that's going to take place. There's real no good way to put it into the conversation here in our little quotes. So we're just going to roll with it, okay? So find a phrase that fits. Remember DAD, or dad in all caps. You will state the departing aircraft first, okay? Departing aircraft first. Then you refer to the arrival. Then you state the call sign of the departure aircraft followed by your release instructions, right? Departure, arrival, departure, release instructions. Very simple. So here's what the dialogue is. Just plug in the call signs and the release instructions and go with it. Visual separation approved between departure aircraft call sign and arrival aircraft call sign. Departure aircraft call sign, departure instructions, released. Very simple. You can pause the video now and practice, right? Plug in some random call signs, right? Just as long as you have the departure aircraft be the same both times and have the arrival aircraft being by its lonesome, and just plug in some release instructions, right? Very good. Okay, so keep this in mind. Put it on the back burner. Put it in the toolbox. Going back to the sector. See you there. Okay, so just a different view of the sector this time. This time we're going to look at the LOA, right? We just got into the 7110. We took some information there and we ran with it in our toolbox. Now we have to look at the LOA, right? Our Borinquen Tower San Juan Center LOA also has some guidance for us. Good, so we're going to use both governing documents here. How do we depart this aircraft safely to the west, right? You know the route of flight, right? We work this aircraft all the time on weekdays, right? In the morning, if you're a morning person who works those shifts in the morning, you might work this aircraft, you know, three times a week, right? But it's an often occurring customer in our part of the world here. So how do we depart this aircraft safely to the west? Well, let's peep at the San Juan Borinquen Tower LOA for details. So an exact quote. Unless otherwise coordinated, right? That's always a great term to have in an LOA, right? Because with anything, coordination can be done, or with coordination, anything can be done. Assign IFR aircraft departing runway 8 the following headings: flying northbound, okay? And then they specify here northbound headings, flying northbound clockwise through southeastbound. So 010, right? So northeast, essentially, degrees through 125 degrees, heading 100 degrees, right? So, okay, so that sounds a little confusing. A lot of numbers there being thrown around. 010 to 125, 100 heading is the preferred heading, right? And you see there, I kind of made you a little triangle there, right? 125 heading off the Borinquen VOR, mind you, the VOR, not the airport. And a 010 heading just north of there. And then I completed the triangle there, and up in that northeast corner, there's 100 heading, right? That's the ideal area to use a 100 heading. All other aircraft 290 degrees. So anything outside of that little circle, almost like a miniature Pac-Man, he's like in mid-bite, you know, biting down on the digital dot, 290, okay? So it's very simple, right? Let's not reinvent the wheel here. More often than not, you can get away with using these headings all the time. Very seldom are you faced with doing anything complex, right? Borinquen is busy, but most of the time you're just giving releases without having to introduce any compounding or complexity into the mix. And we'll cover that in the subsequent slide when we introduce more customers and a little bit of complexity. But for right now, good. Visualize that. Keep in mind what that triangle looks like, where those general headings are, where the geographical areas, right? You know, anybody going eastbound, going to St. Martin, going to St. Thomas, St. Croix, going to San Juan Airport, joining Route 4, joining Route 2, joining Route 1, you know, going northbound towards New York Center's airspace. That's what's going to happen. So perfect. Okay, so now let's go take a look at the radar scope sector again with bearing the 7110 and now the Borinquen and San Juan Center LOA in mind. Okay, see you there. Okay, so I psyched you out there. We had one more bulleted list, which is fine. Okay, let's just take another inventory, right? We're known for that. And if you've been watching these presentations, we take inventory of what we know. We're taking into account what we have in our toolbox to work with, what we have been afforded, privileges we've been afforded by the 7110 and the Borinquen LOA. So let's do it now. Okay, so we see the range of headings we have to work with, right? Very, very good. Let's do this one by the LOA, right? Let's not get too crafty. Let's not use this otherwise coordinated, right? Let's do this by the book, by the headings that are provided for us. Now let's put everything together as one smooth release instruction to be relayed. Just like we don't want to overload the pilots whenever we have multiple clearances, right? Speed reduction, descent, a heading. The tower controller is going to relay verbatim what exactly you say, or so is it in theory, right? So we just want to make sure it's very simple and complex. So take your time, be slow, you know, don't be patronizing, but just Just let it flow at a good rate. Okay, so back to the sector we go. And remember, the shout line is queued up and we're ready to do this coordinating. So I will see you there, finally. Okay, so we had that dead air hanging in there, right? But we're not letting it be dead for too long. And we go with this. Visual separation approved between night cargo 8114 and Cargolux 54 Lima Heavy. Night cargo 8114, turn left heading 290, maintain 6000, released. Perfect. And exactly, there we go, the strip marking. Subject your discretion, SYD between Cargolux 54 Lima, turn TL, right? It's turn left, not left turn, please. Just let's keep it by the book here. It's turn left, not left turn, okay, TL, 290, released. Very, very good. You write that in there into that where you write their detailed instructions and you would get a read back from Aguadilla. Very good. Let's keep this going. All right, great job with that, right? Subject your discretion, controller applied visual separation is awesome. It totally takes the burden off of you and puts it on the prowess, skill, and professionalism of your counterpart in Aguadilla, the local controller, right? They have the windows to look out of. They'll look out the window. They'll see Cargolux 54 Lima out there on what was probably like a 1-0 mile, or probably like 1-3 miles outside of the field on a final. And they'll be able to release that night cargo, using whatever separation rules they have, same runway separation, anticipating separation, all that good stuff that we as en route controllers just don't use. So just keep in mind, it's a very useful tool to use. Now, remember when an aircraft departs, to turn them direct takeoff, right? They're on 290 heading as assigned. And if you recall, whether through monitoring the R side or maybe you're a pilot, you know that night cargo 8114 is not required to tell you what heading they're on initial check-in, right? The check-in is probably going to sound like San Juan Center, night cargo 8114 climbing to 6,000, right? They have no requirement to tell you what their heading is, right? Can you imagine if every aircraft that checked on with you when you're really, really busy gave you a full, long story about what they're doing, what their intentions are? No. You're a professional, you got this. You know what I mean? You're D8 or you're R8, and guess what? You know that you assigned 290, so just remember to turn them back. That's all. That's what that little soapbox was for. Okay, so now let's have a release for 2 aircraft and see how that goes, right? So let's introduce a little complexity, right? Life is nothing without complexity. So here we go. Let's have at it. We can do this. I'll see you there. Okay, so if you remember at the beginning, parts 1 and 2 for this Borinquen series, this love affair, we had some sexy setups, right? We had some radar, zoom in of Aguadilla Airport. We had vector lens. We had call signs. Well, we are met here. We're stuck in chapter 6, which everybody loves, right? Everybody has somewhere in their heart, they have a soft spot for non-radar operation. So here, we're faced with a non-radar operation. So no scope. You're sitting here. Just pretend that we picked up right where we left off from the initial call, right? With them calling, requesting release. So we're going to jump right into it with the conversation, and here it is. R8 Aguadilla request releases. Oh, good. So now you know there's going to be 2. R8 request releases for AM Flight 8120, followed by AM Flight 8110 off runway 8. Perfect. Perfect. Look at that. 2 strips marked up, ready to go. Now, if we're judging by the A side, they forgot those red up arrows, but that's okay, A side. We'll let it slide for now. So just a funny little thing. So, okay, so here we are, and let's go to the rule book and see what we can do and what we can apply to get these 2 aircraft airborne. Okay, see you there. Alrighty then, so what do we know? We know our headings, right? We just learned that. We learned that the headings, the range of headings of which we are to apply and assign based on the LOA. We know the routes of flight, right? We know those routes of flight. Yet again, just like the night cargo, we work these aircraft every day. We have an aircraft going south towards Scapa, right, going to the island of Aruba, and we have somebody going east on Route 4. So let's see what the 7110 has to say. Like I said, we're jumping into Chapter 6 here, so let's have it, a little non-radar here. We know that the Borinquen is a non-radar facility, right? We would call it a VFR tower, however you want to classify that. They do not have radar, right? So we are off Chapter 6, right? So here we go, like Hansel and Gretel. First paragraph, 6-2-1. Separate aircraft that will fly courses diverging by 45 degrees or more after departing the same or adjacent airports by use of the following minima. Okay, let's just break that down. Separate aircraft that will fly courses diverged by 45 degrees or more. That's easy enough, right? We have two aircraft in this sense, in this example, and we have to have them depart on headings that are 45 degrees or more. Okay, no problem there. By the same, or departing the same or adjacent airports. Okay, luckily we're not talking about adjacent airports here. We're talking about the same airport. We're talking about the same runway. Good. By use of one of the following minima. Okay, so here we go. Let's dive into it. A. When aircraft will fly diverging courses, one, immediately after takeoff, right? Immediately after takeoff, right? 1 minute until courses diverge, aka also known as the 1 minute rule. You see, I almost did two there, but that's okay. Just testing you. Within 5 minutes after takeoff, right? Within 5 minutes, 2 minutes until courses diverge, aka the 2 minute rule. 2 minute rule. Awesome. Let's assign some canned LOA headings, right? We know what those are. If we use 290 for Amplate 8120, right, they're going southbound, right? We don't assign right turns off of Aguadilla going southbound. Mountainous area, restricted area, 7105 is all down there. They take the long way to go south, right? They go north to go south, which is kind of perverse when you work it the first couple of times. But after a couple of times of doing this, whether it's downstairs in the lab or in the OJT environment, you'll know it by no other way. It'll seem perverse to turn anybody south off of runway 8, okay? So let's go 290 with that, right? 290 heading takes them, you know, northwest, but even though our intention is to turn them back to the south, and use 125 for Amplate 8110. We have 195 degrees of angular difference, right? That's a range of 195 degrees, 290 to 125. And guess what? That 125, it practically shadows Route 4, which is perfect for you guys going to Hillary or going to effects off of St. Croix. Joining an airway off of St. Croix, it is absolutely perfect. So the 125 is almost like a natural vector for them to shadow and join Route 4, right? And we know that Route 4, goes, Josh is the closest fix to join, and then goes onward to St. Croix. So let's use the 1 minute rule. Let's get fancy and feel good about ourselves by having expediency rule the day and efficiency rule the day, and obviously safety is on top of that hierarchy there too. Okay, so see you in the next slide. Okay, just wanted to prove a point here. So mentally prepare yourself what we're looking at, right? Because non-radars can be hard sometimes. You're looking at the radar scope, even though you're using a non-radar rule here. So we have charts and we have strips, we have clocks. That's like the main three tools that non-radar controllers use, right? If you're talking true non-radar like we are in this instance, right? So just to visualize, you see what Amplate 8120 is going to do, and you see what Amplate 8110 is going to do, right? 195 miles apart. The radials are there for you off the Borinquen VOR. So this situation is perfect. 1 minute, one aircraft is going to depart, right? An aircraft's going to depart. 1 minute later, all of 60 seconds later, right? Gone in 60 seconds, RIP Paul Walker, and, Vin Diesel, he's cool too. They're going to turn to a 290 heading, which is going to be perfect. That divergence is going to happen right away, right? We vectored before, right? We vectored before in these presentations together. You see how fast this stuff happens. They're never going to be a factor, right? And guess what? This is only non-radar up into a point, right? As soon as you hear radar identification on the first aircraft, guess what? The rule goes out the window. We're now applying a different form of separation, which is absolutely awesome. So just keep in mind, it's kind of funny, this application of chapter 6 to this situation is only like that quasi maybe 30 seconds from the time the aircraft departs, takes the runway, leaves Aguadilla's class Delta, pops up, auto acquires, and when we utter those words, radar contact, we're now in chapter 5 and chapter 4 again. So it's all good. So, okay, so let's keep this going. Good job so far. Okay, so here we are back at the strips here. You know what? That darn A side did not mark it up. So guess what? Just take it upon yourself. Like I said, in a very nice, non-patronizing way. Let's get our little stylus out here. And there we go. Life can continue, right? Little up arrows, right? Just like Bob Ross would always say, we don't make mistakes. We make happy little incidences, right? Well, I mean, air traffic control is not exactly like that. Like if you make a mistake, there's not anything happy about the incidents that can subsequently follows. So just keep that in mind. But Blabberboss is a great inspiration, a very calming, cool, and collective voice while you apply your trade. So what an example to follow. So there you go. Always good to have some references there from great people through the years. PBS, exactly. So let's do this. Here's our clearance. Flight 8120, turn left heading 290, maintain 6,000 release, right? That's a normal clearance, right? That's our first aircraft, right? That's where you take the pause. Don't want to over compound. Don't make this thing too complex. Don't go too fast. Take a pause. Flight 8110, turn right heading 125, maintain 6,000, released 1 minute after Flight 8120 departs. Perfect. Perfect instruction. Strip mark is good, right? TL, right? We said not left turn. Turn left heading 290, right? So they're going to head out to the slightly northwest, right? And then this aircraft, Flight 8110, is going to turn right. So off the runway, turn right. 125 released 1 minute after, right? Sign, Flight 8120 departs. Very good. And the way this will play out is absolutely beautiful, right? I didn't put a radar thing up for you guys, but you would see that the Flight 8120 would depart almost on a due west heading. As soon as that aircraft's radar identified, chances are that our side is going to turn them direct to Recca. And then the next thing that's going to happen is the aircraft, Flight 8110, is going to turn right and go almost as if they're joining Route 4, almost towards Joshi at that point. Now, if we did have a radar thing in front of us, one thing I should caution you. As a radar controller, when you get this radar aircraft identified, be careful not to give direct Eureka too early, because guess what? Sometimes the pilot will get overzealous. They're climbing really good, and they turn right over the airport. And it might look a little dicey because you have an aircraft on the runway right now, right? So what you turned it into was 290, just turned into like a 180, and now it's only 60 degrees on the other side of the compass rose. Like I said, it's very seldom does this ever happen. Just keep that in mind, right? I don't have a radar depiction here for you, but just keep in mind, time your turn towards the Recca with that in mind. Bear that little cautionary tale in mind. There you go. All right, so well done with that. Okay, great job. Way to navigate your way through that. But then you're like, hey, Steve, what about two aircraft on similar courses, right? Or the same course in this case, right? They're going to the same airway to join the same en route structure, going over the same fix when they leave San Juan Center's airspace. Good, this is a great example. This happens. This is based in reality, right? This happens all the time. So I'm going to tell you, hey, pull out the drink cap and say, hey, relax. No factor web, right? Let's see an example of two aircraft out on Route 4, right? Which happens all the time, right? Route 4 is a perfect airway in the San Juan route system for aircraft transitioning southeastbound by staying south of the San Juan terminal area and heading out towards the U.S. Virgin Islands. They join the en route structure around St. Croix. It's perfect, and this happens all the time. So let's see an example aircraft or two aircraft found on Route 4, southeastbound, still using the 1 minute rule with some assigned headings. Perfect. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, perfect. So now we're back. We're met with those strips. The red arrows are there. The A side redeemed themselves, or the side, or you redeemed yourself, or whoever took it upon themselves to write in red. And the line is hot, and we are continuing the conversation. Aguadilla chirps up with request released on Flight 8110, followed by Flight 8106. And you say, Flight 8110, turn right heading 125, maintain 6,000, released. Flight 8106, fly heading 080, released 1 minute after Flight 8110 departs. Cool, awesome. That clearance is fantastic. That release is really good, and I'll tell you why. One, you just used the farthest southeastbound heading you're allowed to use by the LOA, 125, which we know is essentially Route 4, which is going to take that aircraft on course. Right now, the R side is probably going to get that aircraft radar identified and give them direct ILRI right off the bat, which is absolutely fine and what is probably expected of them anyways. But look, we took 45 degrees, subtracted it from 125, met it with 80, which we know it's runway 8, so it's practically runway heading, right? But still assigned 080, right? And the aircraft is still going eastbound, albeit slightly northeastbound, right? But it's perfect. They are still in the general direction of which they want to go. And they're going to depart 1 minute after Amplify 8110 departs. And then, as we know, as we discussed, upon radar identification of both of these aircraft, right, 1 and then maybe 1 minute, it could be longer, right, depending on the local traffic situation at Aguadilla, right? 1 minute is what we assign as the en route controller relaying the release to the tower controller, right? It could be 2 minutes, right? It could be because of same runway separation, or maybe they had to give a clearance. Maybe they had a departure, right? A helicopter departure, or somebody in the traffic pattern that needed an advisory or something. So we don't know exactly what's going on. All we know is the bare minimum is 1 minute. After 1 minute, release the aircraft, right? So just bear that in mind. It might not be instantly gratifying, but let's pretend in this case these are the only 2 aircraft Aguadilla Tower is working departure-wise or in the pattern, and they will do it promptly 60 seconds within each other getting released. Okay, good job with that. Good job with the strip marking. Take note, and let's keep this going. Boom, we're back at the radar sector, and we're met with Amplify 8110. What a beautiful sight, right? Dealing with all this non-radar stuff, we're back to the scope here. SAM-1 Center, Amplify 8110, 2,300 climbing 6,000. Perfect. Yet again, they do not check in with the assigned heading, right? So it is up to us and our clearance. Amplify 8110, SAM-1 Center, radar contact 5 miles southeast of the Borinquen Airport, climb and maintain file 210, leaving 4,000, clear direct Hillary. What a perfect clearance and good dialogue taking place there. You immediately radar identify the aircraft, right, using all the skills that we learned in one of these videos before, right, when we deal with Chapter 5. Radar identification, all that fun stuff, and there it is. The aircraft is just about to leave the class Delta, both the vertical confines of the class Delta and the lateral dimensions of the Borinquen class Delta, the surface area there. So good. So let's take a look what it looks like 1 minute from the future and now. So hey, get in the DeLorean, reach 88 miles per hour, and I'll see you in the future. All right, so Doc, this is some heavy stuff, man. We're in the future right now. Well, just 1 minute later, so calm down there, Marty. And SAM-1 Center, Amplify 8106, 2,500 for 6. Amplify 8106, SAM-1 Center, radar contact 5 miles east of the Borinquen Airport, leaving 4,000, clear direct Hillary. Boom. You see, that's where we just made that transition. We just left the confines of Chapter 6, right, and we went back a chapter to Chapter 5, and now we're using radar separation, right? Both aircraft are radar identified, and now we can use vertical, lateral, longitudinal separation, right? Radar separation to have these aircraft both climb simultaneously, be on course simultaneously. It's a beautiful thing, right? So you were positive the whole way, right? Not only in your clearances, right, but your release instructions were spot on, and you ensured using Chapter 6 non-radar rules. And now, if you were the radar controller through all this, now you're using the radar, this wonderful tool presented to you, this micro EARC workstation in front of you to use to your advantage. That's what makes radar such a wonderful thing. It also kind of proves a point that it's amazing the system can also theoretically work based off non-radar rules, which at least me, it puts me in a place where I have an infinite appreciation for people who did this job without radar, but that's a different story for a different day. So great job with that. I know, like I said, this wasn't the most interesting or the most spellbounding concept, but it is something you need to address because guess what? Downstairs in the lab, you will be met with plenty of Borinquen departures, right? Along with the arrivals, but plenty of Borinquen departures that you're going to have to sequence initially, right? Just like the Borinquen rush that we talk about inbound. Well, guess what? We know the characters. We know the flights that participate in the morning on weekdays. So you'll be sitting down and you'll be releasing all these people. So good job with that. Really good job. So let's see at the next slide and wrap this thing up. All right, see you there. Yet again, can't compliment you enough. Hats off to you if I was wearing a hat. Yet again, well done. You are a pro at this. By God, you must make money doing this because you're some kind of professional. Now, one of the questions that come up often is like, Steve, what about joining airways? Okay, so there's a couple things why we did not address turning right to join an airway or turning right on a heading until joining is because a couple things. One, it's been a little bit weird ever since the Borinquen VOR went out of service, right? The physical VOR is still there, right? But it doesn't spin. It doesn't emit any radials no more. It's just a placeholder there now. And we don't know if it'll ever come back. So I'm a little weary about assigning headings to join the airway off of the VOR. Now, naturally, they can pick up Route 4 from St. Croix, which I do believe it is a radio off St. Croix. I'd have to look into it further, right? Also, the heading that you use to join Route 4 in this particular instance, why did we not just say to the AM flight 8110 and 8106, either of which turn right, join Route 4? Well, in terms of legalities, we don't know exactly what that turn looks like, right? We just said, hey, turn right, join Route 4. We didn't assign a heading with it, right? So we just said turn right toward join Route 4. So it's just ambiguous, right? So I did not want to introduce anything ambiguous, anything that might confuse you. I don't want you to apply a rule that isn't there. As you saw, we went by the LOA, we went by the 7110. We assigned headings within the stratum that we are supposed to. As you notice, we can easily say that AM flight 8120 turned left direct to Recca, right? Like I said, we don't know what that left-hand turn looks like, right? It's an arbitrary thing. It's up to the pilot, the rate at which the turn takes place is anybody's guess, right? At least assigning headings here in this bubble that we work in, this slightly pseudo-academic environment that we're trying to achieve here, we went by the books, right? The books being the 7110 and the LOA. Those two binding documents govern the way we do day-to-day operations with each other, us and each other being Borinquen and San Juan. So I want to leave it up to your trainers and the training team to decide whether they are comfortable with you giving those headings right away or direct to fixes right away. So just bear that in mind, but don't worry. If you find yourself doing that, which I do, I'm certified at San Juan. I say, turn left, join Amber 636, maintain, 6,000 released. I do that all the time for the night cargo off there, and nothing ever happens. I see the predictable turn, and they join it, and they start proceeding direct K-talk, right? But since you're training and you're supposed to be doing things by the book, as per your training team instructions, right? Your instructor's instructions, stick with that. So that will be my parting gift to you. Just keep that in mind. But you got the fundamentals today, right? We had a great time. We initially separated departing aircraft, successive departures, departure versus an arrival, 2 departures on the same course, 2 departures on opposite courses. We learned about the 45-degree rule as it pertains to the 2-minute and 1-minute rule. So we learned a lot today. We covered a lot, and I hope you took something away from it. I now had a good time, and I'll see you at the slide for the send-off. Okay. After that great job, you're met with Sterling Hayden, aka General Ripper, big stogie in his mouth, smile, smug kind of smile, all happy, and he meets you with hot damn, you're good, and he wants you to control his whole wings of B-52s, right? A little Dr. Strangelove reference there. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to do so. Fantastic movie. And if I also were leaning back in my office chair, big stogie right now, smile on my face, I would be pointing that at you, that all those emotions we point at you. You guys did a fantastic good job. Great job mixing elements of the non-radar environment to the radar environment. Great job relaying release instructions. Good job using other controller applied visual separation today. It was fantastic. This presentation is also unique because the first time we truly mixed the presentation's applicability to D-side controllers and R-side controllers. So whether you're just starting the D-side class or you're starting D-side training on the floor, or if you're going downstairs for the radar class and you've already been certified on D-side, this is a great refresher for you both. So this actually serves both purposes, both functions in Sector 8. And it's video number 3 so far, 3 of Aguadilla, and I must say the coolest part of working sectors 2 and 8, you have your sequences and stuff like that, but when you start working sector 8, the funnest part is the Aguadilla operation. You get to wear an approach controller hat, and you get to wear a departure controller hat, and you get to have a really good time interacting and making the NAS happen, right? Keeping things going, keeping things flowing, interacting with terminal facilities, and in no other way than you get to with any other facilities in any of the other sectors, right? Because there's no other class deltas in any of the sectors that aren't surrounded by approach controls anyway. So with that being said, I always encourage you to keep your attitude just like your separation positive. I'm Steve, and I'll see you at the next video. You guys take care.